But yeah, about the archive search, that was a lot of my job, and I really had no strategy or I was a history major, but I didn't have too much experience with that. So I mean, my strategy was just I went up to Portland for about 2 or 3 weeks, and I basically just kind of knocked on local news station doors and told them about this project I was working on. And I was just pretty aggressive with it. I kind of just like invited myself into their basements and just started going through their footage. And I think that for a while is like, he's not going to go away, so it's easier just to say yes. And the amount of footage that we ended up getting back was pretty remarkable. I mean, when we first started with this, I was thinking, God, this is 73 to 77. We're going to have to, archivally, we're going to have to rely a lot on newspapers because they have a good art, they have a good record, and then photographs too. But we ended up pulling a lot of 16 millimeter footage. And when we first got it back, it was a little disappointing when we did our first pull because a lot of it was just basically highlights that's all that had survived in these news stations' archives, which is really tough to tell a whole story with just kind of singles, stolen bases, and scored runs. We got one of my favorite stories that I like to tell is that it was funny when we called Todd and we said, "Hey, we're doing this story." I mean, immediately, we have never done a project before, so and the fact that Todd was so into it to begin with, just on the first phone call, just speaks a lot about just kind of I think what it meant in his life, but also just how awesome we're working with him in the interview. And so I think at the end of the interview, I think about halfway through the interview, or how did we find out about it?
Yeah, you before the interview, you told us that you had a reel of 16 millimeter news footage. Back at his house.
Shot.
Yeah, it was shot by a cinematographer named Don Gronquist, who Bing had hired to shoot private footage of the team. And so he told us this before the interview, and my head's just exploding. Oh my God, there's 2 hours of never before seen Maverick footage, because we only had about 5 hours altogether. So about 40% of our archive is back at Todd's house. And so I think after the interview, I waited like a week to kind of get back in touch, and I talked to your assistant, and I said, Todd mentioned he had some footage.
I said I had this footage, and then I spent 6 months, I couldn't find it anywhere. It was like
a year.
I looked in a film archive, I looked in like the local U-Haul place, I looked everywhere, and then finally I found it in my sock drawer. It was in the back of my sock drawer, a plastic bag.
His assistant said, trust me, that's like the safest place, way more than the film vault. It belonged in the sock drawer. Next to the baseball card collection.
And then another archival story I like is the championship game sequence that plays out, the 1977 game. I actually I was helping my grandmother in her garage, and I was up in the rafters, and I pulled out these 2 Super 8 millimeter cans that said Mavericks championship game. And we were about 3/4 of the way through editing the documentary when I came across that, and I literally almost fainted off the ladder, just oh my God, and it was dusty and it had mold growth on it, and it was crazy. But yeah, I found that helping my grandma out. So I guess the moral of the story is always help your grandma out with their chores when she calls you.